What's going on, everybody? I'm Informal Geek, and I'm back doing another rendition to my 2024 top 100 favorite board games series. We're going to be focusing on 80 to 71, just like the title image here displays. Before we go right into it, I just want to throw a disclaimer out there. First off, if you don't really want to watch the 80 to 71, and you want to start over from 100, there's a link in the description to take you there real quick. Because again, spoilers. And then the second part, and actually the last part here, is that when I transition over, you're going to see a table full of different little icons, and those icons represent the pieces from the previous list. So again, spoilers. So I would say, if you want to have any continued discussion in the comment section about any of the games we talk about today, just try to reference them by the number in which they appeared rather than the title, just again to preserve spoilers for anyone else who comes and watches this video later. All right, let's get started. So I've got the table set up already here. You've already seen the previous 20 games that I've already talked about. So starting with number 80 to 71, I'm going to go through, just like I did in the previous videos, a second or two. We're going to unveil all of the teasers for the games in this game and for the games in this list, and turn it into a little bit of a game to see how many, for you to feel like you can guess the game that matches the piece that I show you from it. So let's get started here. Starting with number 80, we've got this one, and my 79, and my 78, 77, 76, 75, 74, 73, 72, and 71. I forgot that was my 71. So yeah, let's see if you can guess what all the games are based off of the piece that I put out there. All right, let's just do it. So my number 80 is a game called Cry Havoc. It's this deadly intense strategy game. This game is one of my favorite area control style of games, mainly because it's surprisingly card driven. I know there are other ones out there, but the way that thematically I like this game is when I explain this game, I say, try to imagine the Avatar movies, right? The blue folks, and the big tree and all the other kind of stuff. That Avatar, not the anime one. That's kind of what this game thematically is there's this planet that's abundant in resources that the humans want, and there are a couple of races also vying for those resources too. But on the planet itself, you've got the native Trogs, which would be like the Na'vi in Avatar, right? There's this native faction that players can control in higher player counts. Otherwise, they're like an NPC faction, just kind of protecting the land as they are. And yeah, this is thematically interesting from that perspective. But my favorite element of this game is the way that they handle combat. So you are going to be fighting over areas and trying to get the resources and so on and so forth, right? And when you declare that there's going to be a combat in a region, what happens is you're going to see this board come out. And during the battle phase, we take all of the units that are in that space, or that spaces being, well, it's individual battles, I guess. So it'd be the individual spaces units, and starting with the attacker, you allocate certain, however many of those units that you have in one of these three objectives, and then the defense does the same thing, and then you resolve them going top down. These things are freaking cool. I wish I would see this in more games. I think that's one of the reasons I've kept this game for so long, is because of the way that this is handled. So just to give you a brief summarization, after the units are allocated, players can take turns playing tactics cards to modify things over here. But when you resolve them, come on game, keep up. The first region, whoever has the most units, whoever has the most units scores 2 points, and then if they're equal players, then the defense wins, and they would get 2 victory points, even though the attacker came in and triggered that attack. So here's one way to get a couple points. After this is resolved, Then we do the same. We do. We look at the middle section and resolve that one. And this one says whoever has the most units here takes one enemy unit involved in battle from any objective, from this one, this or the current one, or the next one. Places it in front of them, and they've now been captured, and they cannot be recruited back by that player. There's a whole prisoners element to this game. So, yeah, if you just win here. And maybe there was a powerful unit used in this region control, now they're your prisoner. Or you can you can imprison something that's going to be used in this later, in this section here. So there's a little bit of a tactical element there based off of how this is going. And then lastly, each player kills one enemy unit in the region with these things for each of their own units placed in this objective. So maybe the attacker goes heavy here to get a couple of points and a few here, and then the defense puts a bunch of units here and says, you know, we're going to kill a bunch of your dudes. You scored points on us, but we're going to kill a bunch of your dudes, and they're going to score one victory point for every unit killed. And so that it's like man, you know, timing your battles for control is really important in this game. Because you might claim a few points, you might still have the region, but you lose your units as a result of it, and then you know you gain points for killing everybody. So you might actually try to bait someone to come in and trigger a battle in a place that you're defending, only to play a couple of tactics cards, and it's like, surprise, I'm gonna put like all of my units here, and yeah, snake points out of you, even though I really didn't do anything but bait you in. So it's really fun and kind of there's some player mind games that you can do with this kind of stuff. And I don't know. I really think it's a fun game. I actually think it's better at 2 players than it is at 3 or 4, but I'm okay with 3. I like 3 better than I like 4. And I have to admit, the game does slog when you're doing individual region battles. So at higher player counts, this becomes a pretty big problem. But at 2 players, I mean, this is a card game. It really, actually, maybe even a deck builder. I guess I could consider it a deck builder because everyone has their own starting deck and factions and skills that you use, but you do draw cards. And there are decks on the board. You can't really see them, but there are individual decks that match the certain terrain types where you can draw cards for those as well. And yeah. Tactical play and pretty good interaction. It's fully deterministic. The combat is resolution, and I think it's a really fun game. So if you haven't given it a try, I would highly recommend it at 2 or 3. But know that it's going to. It's not a perfect game, but it's really fun and thematic. Anyways, my number 80 is Cry Havoc. All right, now my number 79 here is a game I like to play with my wife a lot, and that is World's Fair 1893. This game plays great at all player counts, to be very honest with you. So it's great as a couples game, but it's also really, really good at all player counts. This is I don't know how to explain this game. My brain's not quite working at the moment. There's this board, I guess you can say. It's made up of individual components. So there's 1, 2, 3. There's actually 5 regions that are randomly put around this Ferris wheel, and it does have area majority here. And so on your turn, you're going to be putting out at least one of your influence, I think is what they're called, on one of these regions, and you might play cards if this type of card if you have them. And it'll give you some special effects. Like this one says, this one here says put another influence on the region where you just place an influence, right? Or this one says put one anywhere adjacent to you or something. I forget what this one does. Anyways, so you're kind of playing these cards to put your influence in different places. But the way that you get the cards is no matter how much influence you played in one region, you get all of the cards that are there. And you're trying to gain majorities of sets, or there are sets, collections, and majorities. So you are not only fighting for majorities during individual scoring rounds, but you're also going to be building sets of cards. And if you have the majority, you can turn in more of those cards for these tokens. And yeah, if you get a full set of tokens, I think this is worth 15 points. So it's a really clean game. It goes by really fast, even though it does play in, I think, 3 rounds. You can knock out the whole game in like 40 minutes, especially if you know what you're playing. If you know how to play, actually, it says 40 minutes right there. So I would assume 40 minutes if you know how to play, hour or so for the teach. And there's just a lot of like everything is very dynamic in the way that the cards come out and the order that they come out, and you're constantly fighting for different majorities just to help you with your bonuses. So it's a really fun, clean game, and I would highly recommend it for a lot of people. Actually, now that I think about it, I'm kind of surprised it's so low on my list. But I do like it. I've had this one for many years. It's really great. And that's World's Fair 1893. All right, my 78 is a very, very popular game. It's called Orleans. And this is a really busy picture. It's the best one I can find, really, that kind of comes together. Um, for how busy it is as it appears to be, it's really not that complex, because what you do is you have a bag and it's a bag building game, or pool building game, really. You've got certain workers that are inside of your bag. You pull a certain number of them every round, and then these are your action boards. And so these are like all of the different actions on your board require a different recipe of workers. So if I were to pull, let's just make it up. If I had I forget the names of these things, but if I had a white, a blue, and a black, I can assign them here, and then when I resolve this space, I would get a red. I would activate the red track. And the red track lets you bump up, and you get one of these workers, add them to your bag. So you're constantly like deck building, bag building. Pretty much any of these actions that you take down here are going to be adding people into your bag, but also as you move up these tracks, they influence different things. So if you move up this track here, for example, you're going to be drawing more out of your bag every turn. If you bump up this track, you go up this track for more points. You can do all sorts of different things. You get more money if you go down this track. You can build better buildings. These technology spaces let you you can cover a particular location. So let's imagine I had one of these tokens and I put it on this blue one. I permanently don't have to worry about that blue space whenever I want to build out and activate this land. So you're constantly kind of building up your bag to pull different workers to take different actions. And then this top row up here is how you interact with this main board. And you're trying to travel around and pick up stuff along the way. And these basically just tell you, like, okay, you can move across water, cross land, or build a settlement, or whatever they're called. Anyways, it's really, there's so many like different ways to pursue this game because there are events that come out every round. There are bonuses to culling your units from your bag, putting them onto these boards, and getting a little bit of rewards. And there's a tension there that if you're the last one that fills out a track, you get a really special bonus, which is really powerful. So you're constantly, there's a little bit of tension there. It's fun to try to race to get through certain routes before your opponents to get the different goods based off of the event that's out there. There's just a lot of different avenues to pursue and a lot of different strategies to do well, despite how random the game can be, because it's a deck builder. You're just pulling units from a bag. So there's a little bit of a luck factor to it, but the game's so chill, despite how busy it is, that it's accessible to a lot of people, and I think it's a lot of fun for full player counts, actually. I mean, obviously, I think it might be worth saying that I don't really recommend it at 4 if you're looking for a fast game, but it also can be helpful to play at 4 because, like any of these types of games, the last thing that you do on your turn is you draw up. So you've got a little bit more time to plan out your turn when you've got 4 players compared to 2. So even though it is a longer game overall, the turns tend to go a little bit faster because not too much on the board changes in between player turns, but there's always a little bit. And so you can plan before it's your turn. So yeah, that's my number 77, I believe. Can't do math anymore. No, it's my 78 Orleans. All right, my number 77 is another family style game. Games I like to play with new gamers, and that is Downforce. It's just this is just such a clever game. I know it's a restoration game, which means it was out way sometime in the past and they revamped it and whatnot. I don't know the history of this game. I just know it's really fun. And I think the beginning part of this game is a little clunky when you're trying to determine who gets which color cars. But overall, you're influencing the race, but I would say it's not really a racing game as much as it is a prediction game. So you get more points based off of as soon as a car crosses one of these yellow lines, the first time that happens, everyone sort of pauses and you predict who you think is going to win the race based off of the current game state and obviously the cards that you have in your hand. And a lot of the times you're trying to not have your car be the first car that is the first one to cross the line, because you don't want people to pick. Like, it's better for you if you're picking a car that wins the race and no one else does for that first checkpoint, because it's worth the most points. And so one of the ways you can do that is to bump up a car that doesn't really match your colors. In this case here, this person's got red and blue, so they might want to play the field a little bit and bump up cars that are not quite themselves, like this one early. Might make orange and green seem like they're in the favors to win. So there's a little bit of that over the counter type of bluffing that can happen based off of the order in which you play your cards. But I mean, other than that, the game's pretty straightforward. I mean, for the most part, despite any player powers, you play a card and you move those cards down the list. So if you played this one here, you even though you are the manager, I guess you can say, of red and blue, you are going to move orange 6 spaces, then 5 for yellow, then blue, your car, 4, then 3 for red, and then 2 and 1. So every player touches every car based off of what they play. Wilds are in here and so on. And it's just a really clever game that can be really like, oh man, I can't believe there's so many moments where there's like a bottleneck right here, choke point, and you're way back here and you just happen to get the cars out of the way at the right time, and then you bust out like your 8 and you go boom, 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 and now look at me, I'm just gonna sit here and wait for you guys to move me instead. So like, there's so many fun things that happen in this game, and it's great to play with some older kids. I would say older kids. Sure, it's accessible for a younger crowd, but they're not going to pick up on those types of techniques and strategies right away. But man, it's really fun. I'm enjoying playing with my family, and yeah, it really does well at all player counts too. And that is Downforce. All right, number 76. 76 is another older game, classic one that I love, and I haven't seen anything else like it for many, many years, and that is Quantum. So Quantum, you see the dice here. There's a lot of dice here, but there's not really a lot of dice rolling. The interesting thing about this game is in your dashboard, you've got an explanation of what each ship is based off of its value. So this number 1 is this ship, and this number 4 is this ship. And these ships have different powers and abilities. Some are stronger and they move slower, and some are faster and they are not as strong. There is dice resolution for combat. So it can be a little bit swingy, and you mitigate that with these ability cards. Some of these, like some of these black ones, I think are the single time or instant use, and then the white ones are ongoing abilities. So you can go after them as well by getting quantum cubes and going up the research, bumping up your research over time. But what you're trying to do is, there's a majority here. So you're trying to be the first person to get a certain number of quantum cubes. And the way that you do that is by populating these any of these 4 spaces and having the pips on the dice equal the number of the planets. So I think this is an 8 over here, and you can see that they have a 4, 3, and a 1, and it's 8. And so they're able to put their quantum cube on that planet. And that's the other way around. I said, you're trying to get rid of your quantum cubes. First person to do that wins the game. So this player has been able to do that. They have a red one here. They have a red one here. So they've got 3 more to go. And they're going to be moving their ships around to do that. So there's a lot of, again, I love this game at 2 players the most. I think it's very swingy at 3. And 4 players can be really good too, especially if you do team versus team. I talked about, I think I said BioShock Infinite was one of my favorite 2v2 games. This is another one that I think is really good at 2v2 because there's no hidden information, and it's, again, other than the dice combat, it's really deterministic and fun. So I would say check out Quantum if you can. It's been out of print for who knows how long, so it's also kind of hard to get, but it's a fantastic relic to have. And so that is my number 76, Quantum. Number 75 here is my favorite version of Azul. It's the Master Chocolatier version of it. I played some of the other ones, and I think that they're good in their own ways, but I just happen to like this one the most. So the Master Chocolatier is the exact same version as base game Azul with a variant included, which I don't ever actually use the variant, but it's there if you need it. So the reason I like this one the most is just because I enjoy the aesthetic of it more. Having this on the table compared to the other one brought more people in that I was able to play with. Because it's like, oh, those look like chocolates. What are you doing over there? Versus like the tiles, and again, the tiles and the pieces are fantastic, but I just happen to like this more, so I play it more. Anyways, man, I don't know where to start. But Azul at 2 players is really fun and tactical. I was actually surprised to see this in the what do they call that? The World Championship Board Gaming thing. I don't know the acronym there. As one of the competitive games, because again, the population of this is fully random, but there's a lot of strategy. There's a lot of tactics, I should say, tactical decisions to make turn by turn, because when you start a game, a certain number of tiles are on these factory discs, and you can choose one type of tile that's on that factory disc, and you take all of them, and everything else pushes to the center. And so you're trying to, manage like how well you put these pieces in these spaces, because if you take 2 and you put in one slot, you gotta, you have 1 too many, and you're gonna start taking negative points. So you have to, be very specific about that. But if you wait too long, you could be in a situation like this where you might have accidentally given another player an opportunity to pick up 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 of these brown pieces, which is perfect for the bottom rack. And that's a ton of, it's not a ton of points, but it could be a ton of points, but it's mostly just a time saver. You just save this person probably 3 turns worth of trying to scrounge and deal with these things. So yeah, it's deceptively tactical, but it's a pretty cool competitive game to play, especially as 2 players, and that's why I like it so much. And that's my number 76 or 75, Azul. My number 74 is another old game. It's been reprinted a few times. Now that I think about it, I don't even have the nicer versions of it. I've got an old one. I have the old one with the cowboy on the cover. I should probably try and get one of those newer versions of it. I think my version's even older than this one. But Carson City is one of the first action selection games that I've played. And I love action selection. So on your turn, you choose one of the things up here and one of these folks up here. And that's the ability that you get and the amount of money that you get for the round. Excuse me. And it also represents, I think, the initiative order as well, if I remember correctly. It's been a while since I played this one, but it's I have a lot of nostalgia for it. And anyways, you pick your person for the round, and what you're really trying to do is you're competing over how you build out the town of Carson City, and the timing in which you put down a plot of land, calling dibs on the space, and then you build a building, which are these different buildings over here, and then you begin to upgrade that building. And based on how well you're upgrading it and what you put around it, you can be earning a lot of money. And that switches over to victory points as well. But one of the cool things about this action selection as well is it can be pretty competitive, because you can at any point decide to go to a place that has another person's worker there and initiate a duel. And it is a dice rolling duel, so there are some high stakes with a dice roll that I know that's not going to be everyone's jam, but if you can get into it thematically, you can kind of imagine like, all right, let's roll. And when you roll, you kind of imagine yourselves as like, you spin like your 6-shooter and you're just like, bam, and you're just going to see what's going on there. So I think if you have the right group, that can have a little bit of fun here, and get into the theme a little bit, that will alleviate some of the highs and lows of that dice roll. And there are ways to mitigate it with these guns as well. You can boost your attacks and something, and really, if you're holding a lot of guns, you might intimidate the other person to just give up the spot versus saying no, we're going to duel. Because that's the decision point when someone moves into a spot. It's not a forced immediate duel. That person does have a chance to decide to back out. Anyways, this whole, it's a serpentine track here, but really it's you're only going to go forward, and you call dibs on the particular places and you get stuff. And it's just a really neat game that I think has really stood the test of time because it's got an economic feel to it, but it can be also confrontational and fun. And again, I think it's not for everybody, but if it's in your jam, it's really freaking cool. It's one of my favorite games, and that's Carson City. All right, my number 72 is quite the opposite, and that is Gingerbread House. Now, sure, we play this around the holidays, just because it kind of feels like it's a holiday style game. I play this with my wife. I play this with my kids, and it's a clever little game that is accessible to a lot of people because of the charm in the design. But it can be pretty thinky because you need to be able to look at the pieces that are available to you, and you got to puzzle out this little tower that you're building. So you're trying to attract the different, just in the thematic elements of like the fairy tale of Hansel and Gretel. You're playing a witch, and you're trying to attract fairy tale creatures so that you can eat them. So one of the ways that you do that is with the gingerbread that you're building, that you're baking, I should say. But the fun puzzle here is whatever is displaying. You're going to have. It doesn't show it here, unfortunately, but you've got these. Think of them as dominoes. And these dominoes have, two sides to them with different images on them. And whatever you cover with that domino, you get to do. So imagine I covered this green and this blue. I would get a gingerbread of green and blue. If I got to cover a special ability like this one here, I would get to take a gingerbread that I have and trade it with a supply. Eventually, you're going to have enough of the right gingerbread to complete the recipe that's on the card. And you get to bring in that character and basically eat them or capture them for points. And what's really fun as well is again figuring out this puzzle. Everything's open information, so you can see what your opponents are going for, and you do have a little bit of a forecast because I think you always have 3 tiles available to you. So it's got like a king domino effect where you have a stack of tiles, so you know that this is going to last, I think, 8 turns or whatever the amount of rounds it is. But you only have 3 available to you at any one time. And yeah, getting special abilities and alternate scoring points, cards based off of the number of people that you've consumed or brought and captured. Like, it's really fun, and the charm does a lot of favors to get people to play this game. It is a little, like I said, it is a little thinky. There's a skill gap here, so as easy as it is to bring in someone new to the game, maybe new to gaming, they probably could play it and pick it up pretty easily. But if you're playing against a skilled player, they're going to get trounced. So you got to think about like that element too. When I play my kids, I kind of give them a break just to help them have fun with the game. And then after game 2, I totally got kicked. They kicked my butt in the second game. So it's a great game. Gingerbread House 72, I believe. Yeah, no, it's 73. All right, 72 is, I think, one of my favorite Ryan Lockett games, and that's Near and Far. Near and Far it's a weird game. It's a weird game to explain. Like, it almost has an identity crisis dealing with it, because you can play this game in like a campaign. You can play this game from like an individual character campaign, or you can just play this game as like individual missions. So it's trying to appease to a very wide audience. But overall, it is a victory point chasing style of game. It's one of the first games that you played on a spiral bound book, and so there are pages that represent the maps in the game. It's one of the first games I think that did that, which is what felt really innovative at its time. But There are two separate phases. There's a worker placement style of phase where you're taking actions and getting the supplies that you need to go and eventually interact with the map. And you've got a board that represents like your pack and the supplies that you have and the people that you're bringing in your party and stuff like that. And it's got a nice blend of adventure. There is a storybook to it. So you'll go to a particular place and interact and see a number, and then you have to open a book and read what the passage is. And based off of what you've got with you, or like keywords and such, your adventure will unfold in different paths. So I think it's really good as a couples game. I think it's really good as a 4-player game. Even 3, I guess, is okay too. Obviously, this is one of those games that does take longer the more people you play. But if you've got a good mixture of folks that you can play through this game in multiple turns, I think it's really fun to go through the campaign together. My personal favorite are the character campaigns, because you really get to feel like, all right, I'm playing as this player and they're playing as their player. So we're competing to be the winner of something, but overall we're just having a good time, just interacting with the map and having our own stories to tell. So that's Near and Far. I don't know, that might be my favorite Ryan Lochte game. I don't remember. But yeah. And the last one for this video is this happy dude, and that is Adrenaline. Adrenaline, man, I didn't think about it, but the theme for this 10 games is like awkward and like interesting mechanics and themes and blending themes and such, because this game I think represents oops, I didn't mean to hit that button, but I think this game really represents like Quake tournaments. Like it's a looter shooter basically. So you're running into different rooms, and there's like these always different types of ammo available to you, and you're picking up the ammo, and you're picking up whatever guns are available at the time, and then you're trying to shoot everybody with it. So I would say it's maybe not a looter shooter, but definitely in that old style of like, competitive Doom and Quake. I think is what this represents. But this game is balanced, so that the player who's just recently died and comes back in kind of powerless isn't attractive. Usually in those types of games, you want to get all powerful and just kill them all of the weak style games, and it's kind of a broken feeling, especially if you're on the losing end of that. This game does not suffer from that, because this is going to represent, I believe this is the track that represents the damage to that person. So if I'm playing as the blue player, I know that green is the player that hit me first. They hit me for 4, and yellow did a little bit of damage, and eventually I'm going to die. And so points will be given to the player who had first damage. Points will be given to the player who did the most damage, and points will be given to the player who did the killing blow, and even potentially more points for overkill. So you're constantly splashing damage around each other, and it's crazy how like they turned this thematicness into an economic style game, or Euro style game. But it's fun too. It's fun to be like, oh, I can see the comboing here. If I pick up this tile for this ammo, that lets me use this really awesome, powerful weapon over here that lets me shoot through walls or something like that, and or blast through enemies and push them back. And yeah, it's such a silly game. That does take actually quite a long time to teach, but it's really fun after that. And this is better. This is more chaotic, but I think it's better for the theme at 4-player counts than it is for 2. And that's Adrenaline, and that's my 71, or my 71. I always get confused. And so there we go. That's going to wrap it up here for this video. I'll just kind of show you these again, so you can just remember the journey that we went on. And yeah, let me know how you did. Were you able to figure out all 10 games based off just the teasers alone? That'd be fun to know. Anyways, thanks again for hanging out and watching, and I'm hoping you're enjoying this series of 10. I hope you're actually the biggest thing you can take away right now is like you're researching games you haven't heard of before that you think might be fun for your group. That would be a big win for you. So I'm hoping that's happened for you. And yeah, thanks for spending time with me. Bye.